So about a month ago, something unusual happened, something quite unusual. I was going down to Palm Desert, California for a clean energy conference. I was speaking at that conference. And I went down a day early to play some golf. So I arrived at the golf course, and who's playing golf in front of me that day but Arnold Schwarzenegger and Clint Eastwood? And so we're playing along, everything's fine, but all of a sudden something unusual happens on the 15th hole. So I'm ready to tee off, but standing in the middle of the fairway, Clint Eastwood, standing about 130 yards out from the flag. Arnold Schwarzenegger is sitting in the golf cart beside him. And Clint Eastwood is standing there a very long time. So I'm Canadian, so I'm very polite. But I did live in the US for 10 years, so I decided to drive up and ask them to play faster. So I get in the golf cart and I drive up. And I pull the golf cart up beside Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's sitting in the golf cart in the driver's seat, and Clint Eastwood is standing about 10 yards in front of him in the middle of the fairway, looking at the green, looking at the flag. And I've met Arnold Schwarzenegger a few times, so I said, Arnold, what's happening? Mr. Eastwood standing in the fairway a very long time. What's he thinking? What's he thinking? And Arnold Schwarzenegger has the big cigar in his mouth, and he can't hide his grin. He pulls it out, and he says, I don't know. Why don't you go ask him? So I get out of the golf cart, and I walk up a couple of steps, and now I'm standing side by side with Clint Eastwood. And I've never met Clint before, and I said, excuse me, Mr. Eastwood, you're standing in the middle of the fairway. You're about 130 yards out. You've been here a very long time. What are you thinking? You thinking maybe an 8-iron, a 7-iron? What are you thinking? He's smoking a cigar too. He takes the cigar out of his mouth, and he turns to me, and he's squinting in the sunshine. He says, you ask me what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, what a huge impact the class of BCIT 2023 is going to have on this world. That's what I'm thinking. True story. True story. So it's indeed an honor to be here with you, particularly after that event a month ago. And the history of Ballard Power, a 43-year-old company, actually a long-standing tradition of working with BCIT. In fact, yesterday I spoke to our director of production, Neil Black, and Neil's been with the company about 6 years. He has about 180 employees reporting to him, and he's a former BCIT graduate. And interestingly, last week, Neil hosted a small group from BCIT's heavy-duty and commercial transport technician program to tour our facility. Neil graduated from BCIT, I think, about 22 years ago, so very interesting. What's also interesting is I talked to our leadership team about where we get our co-op students and our new grads and asked the question, what is it special? What differentiates the BCIT graduates that come and work at Ballard? And there's a common thread to the answer. And the answer is very clear. They're job ready. They're job ready. That's a powerful differentiator. And I think it's really symptomatic when you look at the extraordinarily high graduation, people getting jobs, employment rate from graduates at BCIT. Now, if you indulge me, I would like to share with you just 2 lessons that I've learned that may be useful for your promising futures. And these simple lessons I call potato and 5 rows. Now, one of the people that's had the greatest influence in my life is my grandfather, Clarence MacEwen. Now, Clarence was born in Prince Edward Island on the east coast of Canada about 100 years ago. He's passed away about 15 years ago. And Clarence, when he was 14 years old, his father died, and he effectively took over the family potato farm when he was 14. Now, I was born in PEI, but I moved to Toronto when I was very young, but I would go back every summer and work on the potato farm with Clarence. And I remember one time, I was about 10 years old, and I still had dreams of being a hockey player, and I asked Clarence, when you were a young boy, what did you want to do? And his answer was very simple. One word, as many of his answers were, potatoes. Potatoes. Clarence loved potatoes. He loved being out on the land, in the fields, on the tractors, in the trucks. He loved cultivating and digging and grading and bagging, and he particularly loved to see huge trailer trucks leaving the warehouse full of potatoes. And he loved knowing people were going to be eating those potatoes. He loved the fact that he'd be feeding people. He was really passionate about potatoes. He was very clear about his purpose. So the question I have for you, for each of you, what will be your purpose, your potato? And this is a very important question because today society is facing a lot of major challenges. Climate crisis, bias, racism. We've got homelessness, addiction, bullying, to name just a few. And so you, each of you, can make a huge difference. We need all of your passion, your energy, your talent, your empathy in order to change the arc we're on, really to change the trajectory. Because you will be the future leaders, the future thought leaders. You will be experts in your fields, parents, mentors, coaches. You'll have a massive impact on what happens over the next 30 plus years. And no doubt you're already thinking about what it is you'll do going forward, what your future impact will be, your legacy. How will you serve? And I recognize finding your potato, it may not be easy, it may not be obvious, but be guided by your gut, by your instinct. Don't be guided by what others tell you to do or quick money options. Really seek out your purpose. Now, know this. The road will not be straight. There will be curves. You'll make some mistakes. You'll have missteps. You'll probably even have a U-turn or two. That's okay. Failures are fine. It's telling you that you're human. And that's where the real rich learnings occur, when you have missteps, where you have failures. And now the second learning I want to share with you is what I call 5 rows. Now many of you may be familiar when you're on an airplane, you see a little kid up ahead of you. Well, I had this experience about 15 years ago. I was on a flight. I just boarded the flight. It was the last flight of the day. I was flying from Toronto to Calgary. It was cold and snowy and icy, and you could just tell people were in a real foul mood. And I just sit down, and I'm putting the luggage underneath the seat in front of me, and the lady beside me, a stranger, turns to me and says, "My boss is an idiot." And I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "My boss is an idiot. He keeps sending me to Calgary to this customer who's never going to buy anything. They've never bought anything. They never will buy anything. He's an idiot." Now, she was pretty loud. The guy across the aisle said, "Lady, it's not just your boss who's an idiot. This airline, the people that run this airline, they're idiots too. Last week, they lost my luggage. The flight's late again today. Look at the ice out on the wings. We're probably going to crash." So I'm a very positive guy, but you could see there was a very negative mood here. And so what's interesting is that we see this young kid. He's about 2-3 years old, and he's trying to get his head above the seat. It's for the first half of the flight, he's not able to do that. And as we get in the air, that this mood kind of continues, and I'm getting into it as well, and we're all very negative. But this young kid, finally, about 45 minutes in, pops his head above the seat and kind of rests it on there. And he's looking around, smiling. And the guy across the aisle does one of these. And the lady beside me says, "Oh, he's so cute." And then he kind of gets down and walks out into the aisle, and he's doing a bit of a dance, and the whole mood changes. And it strikes me at that very moment, we can control and have huge impact on the 5 rows around us. So the question is, what are you going to do? The 5 rows that you can impact. Let's not talk about what's happening on a flight we can't control, or down at the other end of the flight that we can't control, but the 5 rows around you that you can have enormous impact on. That's the real opportunity. Whatever you do in your career or your life, I know that there's only one way to be successful, and that's impacting the 5 rows around you. So the last piece of homework for you as BCIT graduates and, in a minute, alumni, think about your potato and how you can impact the 5 rows. Congratulations and thank you.